Welcome back to yet another smartphone camera comparison between these four bad boys in windy Berlin. So here we have the Vivo X100 Pro, Xiaomi 14 Ultra, Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, and the newest and latest Huawei P70 Pro. Hey, I'm Olive, your host here at Versus.com, and I'd like to thank HideMe VPN for sponsoring this video. As always, we'll start with standard wide photos as we feel that's the mode that people use most frequently. In this first example, Vivo has undoubtedly produced the most accurate photo with spot-on colors, great exposure, and deep contrast. Huawei also delivers accurate colors, though slightly less vibrant, and the contrast could be a bit higher. Samsung's shadows are a bit harsh, and the orange color is slightly off. Xiaomi's photo isn't looking too good as it has inaccurate colors and overly high exposure in certain areas. Next, in a closer, wider shot, Huawei performs well, while Xiaomi this time impresses with its high contrast and vibrant colors, resulting in a tie between the two. Vivo's image is decent but lacks sufficient warmth, and the shadows, particularly across my face, are too harsh. Samsung, however, struggles with overly lifted shadows and exposure, making the image less appealing. In the final example, all the images are acceptable and usable. However, being very critical, Xiaomi delivers the best result with a nice warm tone and truly white whites. Vivo and Huawei have overly warm whites, and Samsung's image suffers from an unappealing green undertone. Next, let's take a look at some ultra-wide examples, which is a really good mode for capturing more of your scenery in. This one's a tough call. Initially, Vivo seemed to have the best result, but the top of the building is slightly cut off, which isn't ideal for an ultra-wide photo. Xiaomi has this issue even more pronounced. Although they generally produce better photos, this flow prevents us from giving them full points. The purpose of an ultra-wide lens is to capture everything in the frame, and they have unfortunately failed in this regard. Samsung's photo isn't perfect either, being somewhat underexposed with harsh shadows, but it looks better than Huawei's image, which has an unappealing green undertone and a dull appearance. In this next example, Samsung looks decent with good exposure and accurate colors. Huawei is close behind with slightly more saturation, though it lacks sharpness compared to Vivo. However, Vivo's tighter framing isn't ideal. Xiaomi's photo has taken on a strong magenta hue, which is overpowering in the already warm scene. In the final example, all of the devices have performed adequately with only minor variations in saturation and exposure, none of which are particularly notable though. It's time to experiment with some portraits, so let's see which one of these has the nicest bokeh and the most realistic edge detection. Vivo and Huawei excel in color accuracy and authenticity, delivering the best edge detection by preserving even the tiniest hairs on my head. Xiaomi shot in Leica portrait mode falls short with an unappealing result that is overly exposed and has off undertones. Samsung's photo is decent but has somewhat unrealistic edge detection. In the next round, Vivo and Huawei tie again. Vivo offers the most authentic and accurate photo, while Huawei's edge detection is superb. Xiaomi continues to struggle with extreme overexposure, making the photo look quite dull. Samsung produces nice skin tones and good exposure, but its edge detection is slightly off, cutting out bits of my hair. In the final image, all of the devices encounter some difficulties due to the challenging setting for the camera's white balance. Vivo achieves the best balance of exposure and contrast with the most accurate coloring. Huawei follows with slightly higher exposure, noticeable on my face and hand, but its edge detection remains impressive. Xiaomi disappoints again with an overly shiny face, and while Samsung's overall image isn't bad, its edge detection is not the best. Let's pause for a moment and briefly talk about safety. A VPN keeps you safe online by turning your information into secret code and hiding your computer's location. This means no one can see what websites you visit or find out where you are. If that sounds like something you'd find useful, then you'll want to hear this next part. HideMe VPN is one of the fastest offshore VPNs with 24/7 support and cross-platform access. Enjoy 10 GB speeds across 2,300 servers globally. You can also navigate the web with a trusted ally, SmartGuard, proactively guarding against malware, tracking, ads, and phishing threats in real time. Plus, they don't store logs, ensuring your actions remain yours. Best part, you can start for free. Click the link in the description to secure your online freedom with HideMe VPN. Simple, secure, and yours. Time to test out some videos, which is an absolutely crucial category when deciding which smartphone to go for. In this first wide example, Xiaomi initially seems to deliver the best results. However, as you keep watching, it's evident that Huawei maintains the most consistent and authentic look throughout. Both Samsung and Xiaomi produce usable results, though they differ in brightness, making the choice a matter of personal preference. Vivo starts off well, but as I move closer to the camera, the exposure decreases, losing a lot of detail. In the next wide example, all the videos look very similar, with only minor variations in exposure and saturation levels. Overall, each device provides a decent result though, leaving a little to comment on. In the following ultrawide example, Huawei and Vivo appear slightly overexposed in certain areas. Vivo also struggles with fluctuating brightness, which is quite distracting. Conversely, Samsung and Xiaomi handle all aspects pretty well, with Xiaomi showing slightly higher saturation. In the final ultrawide example, Samsung and Xiaomi continue to offer the most detailed results, with Xiaomi having a wider frame and slightly less exposure. Huawei's video lacks contrast and its colors appear somewhat dull, while Vivo has the tightest frame and occasionally struggles with fluctuating exposure levels. Time for a workout session, aka stabilization, which is a crucial part of ensuring that your videos are as smooth as possible. Let's go for a run. Both shots were captured using the ultra-wide camera. In the first test, we evaluated the standard stabilization on the devices by walking with all of them simultaneously. Honestly, there isn't a significant difference between them, though the Huawei appears slightly shakier than the others. In our second test, we enabled active stabilization and went for a run. The results were all over the place. The Galaxy definitely performed the best in terms of smoothness. Vivo exhibited some up and down wobble, which is not ideal. However, Huawei and Xiaomi were a complete disaster, with the clips being unusable. Time to test out some selfies. Let's see which one of these makes me look the best. Both Huawei and Samsung have done a good job in this first example. However, Huawei has slightly more appealing skin tones and gives a fresher look with less harsh shadows across the face. Xiaomi has the most accurate color for my suit jacket, but has a green undertone for skin tones, which isn't ideal. Vivo isn't too bad, but lifting the shadows slightly would have improved it. In the next example, I'm not sure what's happened to Samsung's performance, as the contrast is extremely low, resulting in a washed out photo. Xiaomi, on the other hand, looks quite good here. The green undertones are not present, and the rest of the image has accurate colors and a nice warm feel. Huawei has a nicer exposure, while Vivo is more authentic and true to reality. For the low light selfie, Vivo pleasantly surprised me. Although it has strong AI capabilities for dark conditions, the result this time is natural and not overly sharpened. Huawei's colors are slightly less accurate, but it still produced a well-exposed and sharp image. Unfortunately, Xiaomi is a bit underexposed, and Samsung's contrast is too low, making the photo look washed out and overprocessed. In the front camera video test, Xiaomi is completely blurry when I'm standing further away, which isn't great. Vivo isn't too sharp either, but performs slightly better than Xiaomi. Huawei and Samsung are very different, with one being brighter and warmer, and the other dimmer and cooler. Both excel in sharpness and detail, so the choice comes down to personal preference.
So, starting with the audio coming from the Huawei P70 Pro, how do I sound? Let me know, and we will discuss these in a bit altogether. Then we have the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. How is the built-in microphone on this one? I do love its noise cancellation abilities, so let's see. And here we have Xiaomi 14 Ultra. How am I sounding on this bad boy? Finally, we have the Vivo X100 Pro. How is the audio on this device?
As mentioned, I've always been a fan of the S24 Ultra's noise cancellation abilities, and it continues to outperform other flagship smartphones. Xiaomi also sounds good, and you can hear me clearly. Vivo and Huawei aren't bad, but they have the least noise cancellation, which might prove problematic in noisier environments. Slow motion is a pretty convenient feature to have on your smartphone, but let's see which one of these has the best results. For slow motion, we set all of the devices to the highest frame rate and resolution possible. All of them can shoot at 240 FPS in 1080p. Then we set each device to the highest resolution with the highest frame rate available at that resolution. The Galaxy is the only device capable of shooting in 4K at 120 FPS, earning it an extra point. So we have finally come to the zoom category, which is also a very exciting one. Let's see which one of these can give us the most detailed and accurate photos even at 100 times zoom. 3 times zoom, the Galaxy and the Vivo appear the most natural, with Vivo having a bit more saturation, particularly noticeable in the trees. Unfortunately, Xiaomi's image is blurry, and although Huawei's is sharp, it looks overly processed and slightly unrealistic. At 5 times zoom, the differences become more apparent. Vivo still looks very natural, and Huawei looks better now with a less processed appearance. Samsung's image has low contrast, making it look washed out, while Xiaomi's shades and contrast are too harsh, especially in the tree area, which loses a lot of detail. At 10 times zoom, Vivo maintains its natural look, resulting in a great photo. Huawei looks decent and sharp, but the contrast is a bit too harsh, making the trees look over-processed. The Galaxy's contrast remains too low, resulting in a washed out appearance, and the tree area in Xiaomi's image has become increasingly dark. At 30 times zoom, Xiaomi's result has punchy yet not overpowering contrast, with visible details on the tower. Both the Galaxy and Vivo look good, with Samsung's contrast levels finally improving. Huawei's contrast is a bit too high, losing details in the tower. Finally, at 100 times zoom, Xiaomi remains the most detailed. Samsung and Vivo have acceptable results, while Huawei disappoints with the least amount of visible details.
Time for macro mode, which is always very exciting, you guys. Let's see which one of these can capture the most detailed and precise photos.
Huawei P70 Pro's super macro feature is definitely cool and fun to experiment with. However, Samsung still produces the sharpest and most detailed photos. While Huawei can get closer to the object, the images aren't as sharp, which is a little bit disappointing. Xiaomi also struggles with sharpness and loses quite a bit of detail. Vivo performs fairly well, but not quite as well as Samsung. Finally, let's take a look at a few low-light examples to see how each one of these devices handles darker atmospheres. Starting with a standard wide shot, Vivo delivered the sharpest result with the clearest exposure on my features while maintaining a low light ambience. Huawei also did a decent job, though it has slightly harsher shadows and is the only image that turned out blurry, placing it last. Xiaomi exposed the image well, but the contrast is a bit too low, resulting in the blacks not being deep enough. Samsung's result isn't bad, but it also has slightly lower contrast. In the ultra-wide example, Samsung redeemed itself as the only device that produced a sharp image. Xiaomi's image is somewhat clear, but it looks a little washed out overall. Vivo and Huawei struggled significantly, and honestly, their results might not even be usable. As always, we conducted a blind test on our community page and social media, asking you to vote for your favorite photo without knowing the brand name. The winner with the most points for this portrait photo was indeed Vivo. Huawei also impressed with superb edge detection, demonstrating a clear skill in this area, and it almost tied for first place with Vivo. Samsung and Xiaomi both struggled with edge detection and exhibited slight color variations, particularly in skin tone. Now let's take a look at a couple of video examples. In standard wide video, Xiaomi really stands out with absolutely zero noise, deep blacks, and realistic color tones. It is also consistently well exposed. The Galaxy has slight noise visible in the darker areas, but overall produces a decent video with nicely popping colors. Huawei shows the most noise, and Vivo's colors are a bit duller compared to the rest. Alright, let's do a quick summary and see who the winners are when it comes to the camera. Our scoring system is based on order of importance. Therefore, in categories such as wide, ultra-wide, portrait, and videos, we have a maximum of 4 points possible. Whereas in less important categories such as zoom and audio, the points given are less. For standard photos, the winner is Vivo. Next we have ultra-wide photos, where the Galaxy actually takes first place. In portrait mode, Vivo once again comes first. In videos using the back cameras, it's a draw between Samsung and Xiaomi. When it comes to stabilization, the Galaxy takes first place. For front camera photos and videos, Huawei takes the win, but when it comes to audio, the Galaxy takes the win due to its impeccable noise cancellation abilities. Interestingly enough, Vivo won the zoom category. Slow-mo goes to the Galaxy due to its 4K abilities when shooting at 120 FPS. Samsung comes in first place for macro photos, and finally, Samsung also comes in first place in the low-light category. And that means that our overall winner is, in fact, the Galaxy S24 Ultra. Well done! Woo! So that that pretty much sums up these 4 different phones when battled against each other. We hope you found this review useful and we would love to hear your thoughts. Which one would you choose? Definitely let us know in the comments down below. We believe the Galaxy S24 Ultra is indeed an excellent smartphone and it is a strong option. However, if you are on a bit of a budget but still want impressive results, Vivo X100 Pro is a superb choice at a relatively lower price point. It actually came in second place, just 2 points behind Samsung. As always, give this video a big like if you enjoyed it and don't forget to subscribe to be a part of our Versus.com community if you aren't already. With that being said, we will see you in the next video and until then, take care.